You know how everyone has their own worst game? Well, I hesitate to call Bionicle a video game an actual game. Even the worst of games create an impression, but playing Bionicle was like snorkeling sand down my nostrils while playing the Congo drums. I make no exaggeration. They weren't even trying. And Argonaut Software, who are responsible for classics like Croc, Legend of the Gobos, ought to be ashamed of themselves. They cobbled together like I cobble.
Please stand by. Dave really needs his medicine job a piece of work.
So taking control again. I don't know how else to describe it. Bionicle, for all of its lore and backstory, is reduced to a mere summary in a game. Or a shame. A shameful, shitty game. Well, whatever. Not much is known of the development behind Bionicle the game, but according to the Bionicle Wiki, many levels were cut due to rushed development. Boy, am I getting some Wrath of Cortex vibes here. So, first off, the game tries to hook you in with this intro cutscene.
To defeat Makuta and banish darkness from Matanui, raising him from slumber.
Oh wow, I'm already half asleep just paying attention to these dancers. Yes, even though this tries to rope into players, it just leaves you confused. Who are the Toa? What are the Balrog? Newcomers be warned, you will be lost. And even in that department, it doesn't even succeed in making a coherent story out of the Bionicle material. Only 8 levels exist in the game. It's really a summary of the Bionicle story all stamped together in a quick 8 levels. And as a summary, this game's story is practically non-existent. It's almost like they expect people to know the Bionicle lore, but it doesn't even follow it. Almost after the first 2 levels, the Toa Mata becomes a Toa Nuva, and in this game, they become Nuva by simply collecting all the Chrono. You have to wonder, did the writers at Argonauts, or if there were any writers in charge, actually do any research on the Bionicle lore? Was this really nothing more than a cash grab for licensed games? Now you might be thinking, that doesn't sound so bad. Brevity can be a good thing if done well. Well, it wouldn't be if the game wasn't so damned repetitive. All the Toa have the same attacks. Tau's the only one who should have a shield with his mask power, but all of them can activate a shield, and all of them fire the same light energy blasts. Whatever happened to their elemental powers? What they should have done is have each of the Toa have their own elemental abilities, and they sort of do that with Layla and Golly, with Layla being able to glide and Golly swimming underwater. Another stage even involves pushing boulders on switches, but these only serve as minor gameplay elements. Functionally, they are about the same as the other Toa. It's as if Argonauts software basically made the same Toa, but with a different color palette. It's lazy, it's repetitive, it's redundant. Thankfully, most of the levels are short, only lasting for about 15 to 20 minutes, last time I clocked. So that is something good I have to say about Bionicle, the video game. At least, the pacing is decent. Most of these levels are filled with fuck nothing. Most of them involve you trying to rescue Matorn in order to power up a Suva and defeating enemies along the way. Along the way, you'll be collecting Lightstones, but they don't really do anything because they serve as only to unlock extras. It is basically the same structure with every level. You have to go on foot. And for the levels where you don't have to go on foot, well, there are only a select few levels that differ from the main game. These are vehicular levels, and they all involve you speeding down a pathway at full speed. The minecart lasts too long, the snowboard is stiff. Not to mention their levels are dull. Go through speed boost, kill enemy. That's it. Although I will admit that the minecart has you do some interesting mechanics. You're supposed to grab as many switches as possible in order to keep your elemental bar up since the car is draining it. A twist to the usual play I wasn't expecting. There's also Tahu surfing on lava, and words cannot describe how many times I died I'd have to watch this cutscene over and over.
Was the Plight. The Turaga sent me on a quest to find the 7th Toa. Was the Plight. The Turaga sent me on a quest to find the 7th Toa.
To demonstrate just how lazy they were, all the bosses are simply repeats. Gali has to fight the Borak Cow, which are reskins of the Borak. Even though you are surfing with Kopaka, the icon does not change when you're fighting against the Tenok. It's as if you're still fighting Galak. That's how lazy they were. Now at least some of the Rockshi bosses are different. Anyone has to push some boulders to the points where gas is coming out to crash a Rockshi. Lewa, I never understood what was going on with Lewa's boss. Panrock will be jumping across different platforms, and Lewa needs to blast apart the platforms on the ground. Think you have to strand him, but I don't know what it takes to beat this guy. It even confused me as a kid. And then, of course, there's the final boss fight in Makuta. And his fight is separated into 2 different phases. And in the first phase, he'll be attacking his Rahi while he teleports, and then in the second phase, he will be trying to activate platforms while deflecting energy blasts back towards him. Overall, it's a very simple boss fight, but at least it differs from some of the other fights that we've had in the game. In fact, it's probably the best boss fight of them all, but that isn't really saying much. So overall, I was hoping for an experience more fleshed out from the Argonaut's developers, so I was massively disappointed. Argonaut Software has made so many great games, so I would expect some more effort from them. I guess this goes to say a lot about licensed games being a cash grab. Luckily, the LEGO games improved after this with the likes of the LEGO Star Wars games by Traveler's Tales. But Bionicle the video game is really going to be remembered as a minor setback. Thing is, it really could have been a lot more than it actually was. On the extras menu, you can see the T-poses to a lot of the characters. Plus, on the Tahu Lava Surfing minigame, there's a short period where you can control them on foot. What a tragedy that it is that this ended up being a rushed hack job of a game with barely any substance. But lest we forget, LEGO eventually did come to produce better video games. So maybe there is a glimmer of light in the darkest of tunnels.